So, I just finished the Deltora Quest book series, and boy have I got some sense to throw. For context, the Deltora Quest books were written by author Emily Rodda and released in 8 volumes in the early 2000s. It is set in the fantastical realm of Deltora and follows 3 daring heroes on their adventures to reclaim the kingdom's lost treasures and rid it of its evil captors. In this video I will go into deep detail regarding my personal thoughts and impressions of the story, so please beware of spoilers from here on out. The story begins with Jared. Jared is not the main character, and nor does he really become relevant again until the end of the series. But his actions in the beginning is what kicks the whole story off. Jared lives at Deltora's palace and is good friends with the royal heir, Prince Endon, who is crowned king upon his father's death at the beginning of the story. This is until he discovers that all may not be as it seems in the kingdom, and having tried and failed to convince his friend the king, Jared is forced to flee the castle and hide himself in the nearby city of Del, where he is taken in by the blacksmith, sheltered, trained, and eventually takes over the business when the old man passes away. Years later, he is married to the smith's daughter, and they are expecting their first child, when catastrophe finally strikes. Eons in the past, the scattered nation of Deltora was invaded by evil shadow forces and taken under their reign. In this time, one brave man set out on a quest to unite Deltora's 7 tribes under one and gather strength to defeat their enemies. Enter Deltora's belt, a magical relic crafted by this man to aid in his quest and fight off the Shadow Overlord. In the wake of his success, the tribes unite as one under his rule, and the belt becomes a symbol of peace and protection, handed down from generation to generation as a new ruler takes their place. But the shadows never went away. When Jared rushes to help his estranged friend, his wife, the queen, and their unborn child, it becomes clear just how deep the evil forces have sunk their talents into the nation and the royal lineage. With the palace taken over, the people's spirits long crushed, and the belt broken, its magical gemstones, symbols of the 7 tribes' strength and unity, scattered before the wind, things are looking glum. Discussing their options, the old friends and their expecting wives eventually understand that to even have a chance of resolving the matter, they will have to wait. Which brings us to the main story and Jared's son, Leif. After the fall of the kingdom to the evil Shadow Lord, the faith in the original royal family rapidly fails as the people feel cheated and betrayed, and rightfully so. For years leading up to this point, the people of Deltora have been continuously neglected, their pleas falling on deaf ears, while the royals in the palace relish in a lavish and easy lifestyle. Unbeknownst to both, though, it is the evil forces of Shadow who are behind all the misery, having been pulling strings behind the scenes for a very long time, biding their moment to strike once more. But with the belt now gone, and the seeds of doubt firmly planted in the minds of the people, our current heroes have no choice but to venture out on an arduous journey to reunite the gemstones and the belt, and reignite the hope in the people's spirits. And so, the adventure begins. Deltora Quest is no masterpiece. The first few books are nothing to write home about, and I honestly didn't feel gripped by the story until around the 5th or 6th book, which, in an 8-book series, isn't really a good selling point. We follow intrepid adventurers Leif, son of Jared the Smith, Barda, another escapee of the palace, babysitter of the group, and oftentimes the voice of reason, and Jasmine, wild girl of the woods, with her companions Cree, the raven, and Feely, the hairy little creature? Look, the book didn't provide a good description of Feely, and he doesn't contribute much other than chattering on Jasmine's shoulder most of the time, so I have no idea. The main characters leave something to be desired. Other than certain distinct features, nothing really sticks out on either of them, and Leif might as well be a blank slate. The books also have an awful habit of conveying information through telling more often than showing. Nothing makes this more clear than when they attempt to hammer home the point that Jasmine, having been raised in the wild, has no idea how society works. Seriously, it becomes a little tiresome how often this point is presented to us through the early books. The first 4 books are pretty run-of-the-mill children's or early teens fantasy books, but at some point the series makes a drastic shift in the direction of the more gory and violent. Suddenly we're getting graphic descriptions of death, decay, injuries, and so on. It's almost strange how abrupt this change is. Like, the author decided to make the story more dark and grimy only after the first 3 books were released. That being said, though, the story is surprisingly well put together. The elements of the book seem well thought out and wrap up fairly neatly at the end, which is surprising considering the amount of wacko encounters the heroes have come across over the course of the 8 books. However, there are some elements in the ending which I have some thoughts on, but we'll get to that in a bit. At around the 5th or 6th book mark, the character roster finally expands and we are introduced to important side characters Grim and Dane. Yes, those are their names. And the 2 of them add some much needed character conflict. Grim is a distrustful fellow with a mysterious past and a gruff personality to go with it. He ends up having a strained relationship to the protagonists up until the very end. Dane, on the other hand, is timid, mild-mannered, level-headed, and ends up joining the heroes on and off until the end of the series. While traveling with them, he gives some intriguing insights to the lost heir to the throne, which will eventually lead into a rather satisfying plot twist towards the end of the last book. Dane, Leaf, and Jasmine are all around the same age, by the way, which will become important in a little bit, I swear. Our heroes gather up the rest of the gemstones, complete the belt, and manage to gather a member of each of the original tribes to once more swear their allegiance under one rule, and activate the powers of the belt once more, and this is where it is revealed that Dane seems to be the true heir. And this is where the issues begin. You see, before this scene can be entirely resolved, Dane is whisked away by another bad guy, and I am immediately struck with the sensation of, oh no, they're gonna pull a complete 180 and reveal that Dane was evil all along, aren't they? And while I wish I could say I was wrong, this is exactly what happens. The creature pretending to be Dane reveals that it's been stringing the heroes along until this final showdown and they have fallen into its trap. But here's the thing. This plot twist makes no sense. More on that later, though. The story moves on to a mad dash back to Del. Dane is rescued and then subsequently revealed to be an imposter. Jasmine is revealed to be Grimm's kid and heir to Deltora. A showdown ensues, things get real, the Shadow Lord makes no appearance, the true heir is finally revealed, it turns out to be Leaf, no surprise there. Grimm is Jared, Leaf's parents turn out to be the lost king and queen, the belt works and rids Deltora of the evil once and for all, and all is well. But wait. Let's go back to Dane and the belt for a moment. Throughout the story it's been revealed that multiple of the stones react by changing appearance in the presence of evil, betrayal, and lies. On multiple occasions this fact is pointed out and gives the heroes a heads up before things go down. So why doesn't the belt react in the presence of Dane? Throughout, several previous encounters have proven that the gemstones don't seem to discriminate, or ignore. If it has ill intentions, the gemstones will reveal it. The eviler, the more apparent the change. But on this occasion, it seems as though the author conveniently forgot this little detail, only to be able to pull a fast one on us at the end of the books. Until this point, the books have consistently managed to give hints beforehand about later revelations. Grimm showed up as a throwaway character before he became more important. Details and elements that have become important later on are oftentimes sprinkled in as flavor text before they become relevant. This is great foreshadowing, and it only makes it sting all the more when arguably the most surprising plot twist of them all has none of that. The twist of Dane's betrayal is similar to those cheap jump scares in horror games where you are pulled along into an empty room with nothing important in it, only so that the game can set up a scare as you turn to leave. The only reason we anticipate it is because it's a tactic used so many times before, and that doesn't make it good. With this out of the way, let's get into all the reasons why this plot twist makes no sense whatsoever. Number 1. In the story it is revealed that Dane met Grimm a year prior, which would put their meeting at a point before the hunt for the gemstones had even begun, and long before the evil Shadow Lord was concerned with tricking or capturing any rebels. Number 2. He takes the shape of what could be the heir to Deltora, and crafts a backstory to match. Why do this when you have no reason to? To garner the support of the underground resistance? It becomes pretty clear that they have no love for the royal family or their heir, so that seems a little pointless. And number 3. he was in charge of the attack on the Resistance hideout, the one which was meant to trick everyone into believing he'd been abducted. Why set it off before he had the belt on him? It becomes pretty clear that it is of great importance to him that the belt is destroyed. Why not make sure he had it before he was whisked away? And on the note of the belt, why didn't it show his true intentions before? The belt was visible in his presence multiple times, and yet not a single person noted whether any of the gemstones had changed appearance. This becomes especially evident in the final book, when each of the 7 tribe members renew their vows and swear their allegiance by each touching the corresponding gemstone on the belt. It is right there in the open for everyone to see, and yet there is no sign that anything is amiss. And number 5. On the way to a rebel hideout, he faints and needs to be carried the rest of the way by Barda. Why would he feel the need to do that? I'm assuming he is just pretending, as he is not human and probably not as hurt as this scene has led on. Was it to pit the rebels against the 3 heroes and possibly kill them then and there? But why risk outing himself like that? If he was hurt in the crossfire, the rebels would have understood pretty quick that he is not a regular human. And lastly, Dane is the one proposing to reunite the 7 tribes and activate the belt. Why? What does he gain by it? All in all, this is a fairly entertaining and competently put together fantasy series, which improves and picks up steam towards the end, and then stumbles across the finish line as a result of a poorly thought out plot twist. I feel like there are multiple ways to resolve this matter, and before we wrap it up, I would like to present you with how I might have done it. So strap in, it's gonna get wild. Throughout the series, we are introduced to these 3 evenly aged characters, who can all turn out to be the missing heir. Now, it isn't a surprise that it turns out to be Leaf, but I think the twist of this could have been handled even better. I'm thinking, instead of the king and queen taking Jared and his wife's place at the blacksmith, a plan which in of itself is a minor plot hole, are you telling me that the young couple running the blacksmith in town, one of whom was the previous owner's daughter, were swapped out and no one noticed? I'm thinking, what if there wasn't a swap made physically per se, but since it was Jared who mended the belt this time, and his son who went out in search of the gems and subsequently uniting the nation in the process, what if the belt itself realigned to consider Jared and his lineage to be the true rulers? A swap of power due to an old legend repeating itself would be pretty neat. And what of Dane and Jasmine? Well, I'm thinking it would be pretty cool if they both turned out to be children of the previous king. Twins born on the road, and their parents realizing it would be easier and safer to conceal them separately, so they split up. Jasmine being raised by their father and Dane by their mother. At some point in the story, both of them are mentioned to own a dagger, and Jasmine specifically claims it to be a gift from her father, and this could play into this connection. Perhaps the daggers were a pair, and each child were gifted one as a sign of their lineage. And let's take a moment to consider the awesome sibling dynamics these 2 would have. One is direct, hot-headed and brash, and the other mellow, level-headed and timid. This does leave the element of the mole within the resistance, which turned out to be Dane. And though I have no issue pinning his role on a different character, there are multiple ways to resolve the matter. And they don't have to involve an evil, shape-shifting monster who is somehow immune to the powers of Deltora's belt. There is actually one other character, a Resistance member, who could take the role of imposter spy, and the heroes would be none the wiser as while they were in the Resistance, they kept the belt hidden away. And there you have it, my 2 cents on an old classic fantasy series. Did any of you read it as a kid? What were your thoughts? Have they been altered over time? I would love to see your own cents tossed into the mix in the comments below. Until then, be mindful, stay safe, keep creating, and have a great day, everyone.